I'm Seth with According to Seth. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic. I've been
Awesome.
so excited to do this interview with you. Big fan of your films. I absolutely love Drop, so congrats on that.
Thank you so much. I
Of
appreciate
course.
that.
So the first question I had for you is, I noticed that this was your first time that you've directed but not written the script for the film.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a different film than what we've previously gotten from you. It's kind of like more of an edge of your seat thriller. Pressure cooker. What did you find was more difficult filming with this project? And what was it about the script that you were like, oh, I need to do this?
When I read the script, I was immediately taken by the concept and how clean it was. And it really felt like a classic Hitchcock thriller, but with modern technology. So that was really exciting to me. It also reminded me of Red Eye, which
I love
is
Red Eye.
one of my favorite Wes Craven movies. Yeah, I mean, it was just a great opportunity. It was, I read a first draft, so I was able to kind of get in on the ground up and put on my writer hat and worked really closely with Chris and Jill, developing it further. And, they did such an amazing job with the script it was like a nice, it just felt like a nice pivot for me from a career standpoint, and I, felt like I had made, I'd done the horror comedy thing, and I never want to kind of put myself in a box.
Yep.
And so it just felt like the right movie at the right time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it turned out great, so
Thank you.
thank you. Brandon and Megan were so good in this, and they had such amazing chemistry. They seemed like they were an actual match,
Yeah.
You're always incredible at getting the most out of your actors, so what is it about those two specifically that either during filming or the audition that you knew they were perfect for the role of Violet and Henry, and what do you do as a director to kind of get the best out of them?
Right. Well, I'll start with, they did not audition.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
So they're like, when you start working with a certain caliber
Yeah.
of actor, or unless you're a really famous director, it's, you kind of have to go on your gut and you have to go off of the previous body of work.
Yeah.
I was a huge White Lotus fan, still am.
Yeah.
And she was amazing in the show. And I immediately felt like this is someone that is magnetic, that has a connection with the audience. And she sort of embodied all the things that I thought like Violet should be. And so it was a no-brainer. Megan and I met for coffee. We had this sort of instant bond. And I walked away from that meeting just knowing that she was definitely her, and I was just really hoping that she would say yes. And then Brandon, also a big fan of his work. And I think that he has this kind of classic movie star quality to him, and he's so, there's this masculinity, and he's like a big dude. And so there was something very interesting about making him the damsel in distress in the movie, because he's like not a person that you would look at and be like, oh, that guy needs help. Someone better save him. And so I loved that juxtaposition, and I also just thought just imagining this couple at the table, I just thought I really want to see those two people.
That's
on
awesome.
a date. So yeah, that was that.
I love that you said that too, like he's the damsel in distress kind of. And one of the things I really loved about this is that, your characters are always so strong and resilient. And I love that in this film, it's ultimately Violet's story where, it's one of redemption, resilience, and regaining her power. So she becomes her own knight in shining armor. So when dealing with such a sensitive subject as obviously domestic abuse and things like that, what do you hope people take from her journey in this?
I just think that I hope that people, if they know someone or they are someone going through something like that they are reminded that there's hope, and that there is a way out, and that there is another side, and that the journey isn't perfect, and that it's a work in progress, and I think that's something that Violet's really going through in the movie. But yeah, I think resiliency and hope, are the two things that I hope people take away from it.
Definitely. I definitely took that away. I thought she was brilliant in it, so.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Listen, I love Happy Death Day, and I love Happy Death Day to you. Don't worry, I'm not asking you about Happy Death Day 3 yet.
but yet.
Yet. But I especially love Happy Death Day to you because I lost my mom a few years ago to cancer, and I really resonated with her story in the sequel, and that, we can't change the past, and that our grief and loss is kind of like what makes us who we are. So was there a project or a script that didn't work out for you, or a setback that you faced in your journey to being where you are now as like a writer, director, that although it was a huge blow, it made you stronger because of it?
Oh, I've had many. I mean, I think whenever you sign up for this job, be it writer, director, or both, your career is going to be sort of fraught with disappointment and rejection and failure. But when I always say, like, if you're failing, you're trying. And so, you know, I think that's what I've always taken away with me. And I think, like, you know, again, we talk about resiliency, and I think that, you know, finding a path forward, you know, when things don't go the way you hoped or wished, you know, that's all you can do.
Yeah, I really love that storyline, and it definitely resonated a lot with me. So I rewatched it last night before the interview. I was like, I need to do this again.
Yeah, I love that movie. I'm very proud of that one.
So going into Happy Death Day 3 now. Obviously, I know it was just announced. So what is it about Tree and her story that, you know, you want to keep going back to? What is it that drives you to that connection?
You know, it's what Jess and I talked a lot about, you know, and I approached her a long time ago with the idea for the third movie, and she was so taken aback because it's left field, but then she was like, oh, but that makes total sense. And we really felt like there was one more lesson that she had to learn, you know, and I think, like you said, the first movie is her just finally starting to accept her mother's death and dealing with her grief. The second movie is her actually really having to do the hard work of that and accepting that, like, it has made her who she is. And then the third movie, there's one more component, and it's not about grief, or I shouldn't say that, it's not about her mom.
Yeah.
The third movie is about kind of what we just talked about, which is that sometimes your life doesn't work out the way you thought it would. And maybe that's okay. So we just felt like there was more gas in the tank, and a really fun concept to sort of tell that particular story. So we're excited. We are, you know, just like I said, getting the conversation going again and figuring it all out, but we're hoping that we can get it moving.
I'm excited for it too. Listen, your writing on Hard Eyes was fantastic. I freaking love that movie.
Thank you.
It blended the rom-com and slasher element so well. Like, you do so good with that. How, as like a director and writer, how do you find that perfect balance? And like, what do you find is the most difficult part in finding that balance?
So I'll use Hard Eyes as an example. You know, that was a movie that I felt like there was this golden opportunity to, like, make this really violent, scary rom-com. And so I think it's about committing to making a real rom-com first, you know? And so even though we were unpacking some tropes and winking and nodding throughout the movie, we're still playing the romance in a pretty earnest way, you know, in a real way. And so, like, it helps kind of ground everything. And what it was really funny was that we always said, like, Hard Eyes is a rom-com, but there's a serial killer that keeps invading the movie. And you're like, get out, you know, we're trying to have this romance. And that was just the fun of it, you know. But I always say, like, every movie from Happy Death Day to Freaky to Hard Eyes, even to Drop, which is like, if you ground your central character and you give them a real life struggle, then I think the audience will attach to that. And then you can kind of go anywhere and they'll follow you, you know, because that's just, you're invested. And I think it's about investment, and that sort of is always the secret sauce, I think.
It was definitely one of my favorite slashers in a long time.
It was a really fun movie, and
it
Josh
was so fun.
Absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
It was such a joy to write something and then hand it off to somebody else and then see it and go, oh, and it's better. You know?
It was so good. I love that you're writing, like you said, the comedy and the slasher vibes, like they go hand in hand in it.
Yeah.
Last question I have for you. So since this movie is about airdrops, I use movies as a way to connect with people. I think it's like the best way to, you know, bridge the gap and let somebody know who you are as a person. So what movie, or specifically movie poster, would you airdrop to somebody?
Probably Rosemary's Baby.
That's awesome.
It's just a movie that I've seen a million times, and it was like, it's been my comfort movie my whole life. I used to watch it every night to go to sleep, which is really weird.
How did you fall asleep to that?
Well, it's funny, like, I mean, look, I'd seen the movie so many times, and it wasn't that it was putting me to sleep, but it just became like it was like a sound machine to me almost. Like, I needed to hear the sound of that movie and hear their voices to, like, go to sleep, which is probably clinical, but
that's perfect.
Yeah.
I was hoping somebody was going to airdrop me something during this interview, but I didn't get anything on my iPad.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Well,
we all let you down.
Thank you so much for
Of
your
course,
time today.
pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
it was great talking to you.
Thank you so
Yeah, of
much.
course, thank
Take
you.
care.